How are you?
Sorry, I was getting. Yeah, good, thanks. How you keeping?
Yeah, I'm fine, thank you. Thank you so much for taking time out your day to do this podcast with me and Pulse Social
No,
around
no problem at
the
all.
theme of disability in sports. Could we just start with you telling us a little bit about what you do and what your role is within the sporting industry?
Yeah, so my role currently is working with Special Olympics GB as a football development officer. So I'm a sports specific officer. Obviously, Special Olympics have 27 sports that we engage in. But uh, my role is funded by the FA, and
Right.
we're a national partner for the FA. And it's really around promoting the sport of football and get more people with disabilities playing football.
Right, I see. And what's your journey sort of been within the disability sporting industry? So from young, was it always something that you wanted to go into?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, been involved in probably disability football for probably close to me 15, 16 years now. Previously, I worked as a coach within a Special Olympics club in Ireland.
Right.
So done all that side of things and worked regional and national games, and then went to World Games in Athens with the Irish team as well. So that was great. Then came to London about 13 years ago and worked with Queen's Park Rangers in the community as disability and inclusion lead there. And then a couple of other roles where I worked with the Tennis Foundation and also London FA as disability officer as well. And then moved to Special Olympics just in January, so nearly a year at Special Olympics now, and working across the country in the role of football development officer for Special Olympics.
And has that been in every place you just mentioned? So while I was working for QPR, is it the same thing
Yep.
as the Tennis Association as of now?
Um, yeah, some of them were a little bit different. I know at London FA, I kind of worked across um, the wider inclusion, so it was around working kind of like social inclusion projects, working with we've done a lot of stuff around rainbow laces, working across the Black Lives Matters campaign as well, and doing a lot of stuff around racial inclusion as well. So that was interesting. And then at London FA as well, I've done some work around safeguarding. So worked as a safeguarding officer for a couple of years in that role as well. So yeah, they've kind of been a mixture, but mainly inclusion and
Mainly focused on the
uh,
inclusion side of things.
that's it. And disability probably more. Yeah, that's where I've got massive passion in.
Brilliant. And then kind of just moving on to more the coaching techniques and defining disability for, I think it's not spoken about as much as it should be within sport, the disability sector. For those not really familiar with the sector, could you explain about disability coaching on a day-to-day basis and how it kind of
Yeah,
differs itself from the standard game?
yeah, definitely. Yeah, so I've got a couple other roles. So I work as a disability coach mentor as well. So that's supporting coaches around either coaches who've got a disability, wanting to get into the game, or people who want to know more about disability coaching. And then I do some tutoring around inclusion as well. So I work with Activity Alliance on working with coaches around making sessions more inclusive. And I do some stuff with Men Cap as well. Some Special Olympics, do a LD and sport workshop. But the main thing I can say across all them things is just thinking of the player as an individual within your session, thinking of the positive things they can do, but also being aware of the things that you might need to know about to get the best out of that player. So yeah, I think a lot of it is, I can't say the coaches when I do them workshops is don't be afraid that you probably have barriers in the minute. No attitude towards maybe disability, and there's always that fear of saying the wrong thing. But I think my advice I always give to people is speak to the young person in question, speak to the parents of the young person, get to know that person, see how you can include them in the session. And then the other stuff is probably the step model, which is a great tool for coaches now across not just disability coaching, across the whole game, on how you break down your session, how you make it maybe easier or harder for players, but then also how do how do you make sure that everybody has an enjoyable experience when they come along? So looking at the structure of a session, how you're including people in that session as well. But yeah, definitely. I think a lot of it is education. I think a lot of people, it's just getting to know the impairments as well. I think that's what a lot of the workshops I can deliver is people, just getting a bit more comfortable around the language as well. Terminology is another one. That's really important as well.
Yeah, so just understanding what these players need adapting, the sessions need to be adapted to them rather than running standard sessions.
So that's it, and I think it's to be honest, I always say it's just good coaching. It's how you interact with people, how you communicate with people. That's across any coaching, like how you treat people as well. No, how you motivate. You see the best coaches in the world. They're probably not tactically, might not tactically be the best in the world, but they're the good people. They're good at working with people. They can get the best out of players. They know when to push them. They know when to not push them. So yeah, I would say it's probably that people management, that real skill, and just
Of
trying to
managing
get best out of
people.
people, but
Yeah, of
treating them in a
course.
way
And
that
then obviously you mentioned, coaches that can adapt well in a situation in the sense of maybe it's the language or understanding what
yeah.
specific players needs. But in terms of specific, training techniques, is there anything you could explain about that, like specific techniques that you would use for the disability side of things?
Yeah, it's probably getting to know the impairment. If no, obviously the impairment's really important, and there would be kind of things that you need to know about certain impairments, and maybe how you set up your session, in terms of, I think the communication's a big one. Like, no, if you're working with like we do a lot of sessions now with Special Olympics with young people who've got learning disabilities or on the autistic spectrum. It's about giving them clear, concise information. Sometimes as coaches we talk a lot on the sideline, and it's lots of talking. And for any young person, it's probably too much. But especially people, and then it's probably understanding of players as well. Sometimes as coaches we rhyme off loads of information and go, "Oh, you got that," and then the young person, because they're afraid to say no, probably says, yeah, I've got that." And so it's that checking and challenging, that kind of open-ended questions to the young people. Not do you get that? It's maybe ask them a question about the topic or the session that you're doing that shows that they have listened and have taken it in and learned it.
Brilliant. So it's understanding they know what they're doing as well, rather than just feeding
That's
information
it.
at them.
Yeah, we've a habit of coaches, and I think I'm guilty in the past. Well, we have a habit of going, thinking we've given loads of good information, and then people are like looking and saying, "Yeah, didn't really understand that," but we kind of don't check and challenge that,
Of course, of course.
which
And
is
then just to
important.
touch upon some of the stuff I've read about you on LinkedIn, and obviously, as you've mentioned, you've worked at QPR in the past
Yep.
as a disability project manager. Could you, obviously, you stated that you gave a lot of opportunities and tried to support people within the industry, as you've been explaining. Is there anything specifically based on the role that you did at QPR that you can talk about a little bit more?
Yeah. We used to do a lot of work around coach mentoring, and giving coaches an opportunity to, with an impairment or with a disability, to get on the coaching ladder, because it's a difficult for people with disabilities to get on that ladder. So we've done a lot of work um, with other football foundations, where I think one of the projects we ran was working with young people with Down syndrome, and we ran a more kind of a more longer level one, FA level one, but we
Yeah.
also had loads of support like in between each of the blocks that the young people done. And then we had links to the Down Syndrome Association as well, and worked with the parents, and had that mentoring outside the workshop. Also done that with London FA as well. We done a coach mentor program in London, and we got people to complete their FA level one and their playmaker and all the things that you need to do to get to become a level one coach. But then we also had the other stuff of placing them in a club, and then supporting the club around kind of awareness training so that young person felt that they were comfortable with the
Right.
club and that the coaches could support them and get the best out of them. So yeah, there are probably two projects that
So
we've
brilliant. So it's
done.
more about supporting the clubs as well, especially after they move on,
That
keeping the
that's it.
support
Yeah,
there in a regular routine.
yeah, because we had a lot of feedback from getting placements wasn't the problem. People were placed in clubs, but it was the kind of support they got when they were there, and we had some stories of coaches who just stood in the sideline and weren't really embraced, or the coach the main head coach that they're working with didn't really include them in the session. Not out of kind of badness, more that they didn't know how to work with that young person, or they maybe had a bit of fear of some of the stuff, letting them actually so have that confidence to work with the clubs and say what do you need, know what help do your coaches need to support them people.
So it's kind of just putting a long-term routine in, taking some of the
That's
coaching
it.
techniques that you used to do and trying to implement that in a different place.
That 100%. Yeah, that's it. It's more. It's just giving people confidence. I think a lot of times, but it's also supporting that coach as well. That young person is what we're supporting the club. They need that support, but it's also that young person who might need extra clarification on some of the topics.
Yeah, of
They,
course. And then
the
that's kind
yeah,
of where I was trying to lead on to next in terms of like the representation of the sport.
yeah,
Do you think kind of obviously the disability sector is becoming more relevant and it's changed a lot within the last few years in terms of the visibility shown, whether it's online or social media or through campaigns in the FA in England. Um, However, in your opinion, do you think it's still underrepresented in the sense of the standard game? Do you think it should be represented more?
Do you mean in terms of the
Yeah, in
coaching
terms of
side
the
of things?
disability side of sports.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think yeah, there's not enough role models maybe at clubs, and I think with the England teams now, there's some good work being done with the impairment specific teams like your CP team and the power chair team, the blind and deaf teams. There's some real good role models coming out who go out and kind of promote the good work of no what they've done and the kind of story they had to get to that level. So they're kind of good role models for people with disabilities to kind of to strive to be the best in the game. There's also some good stuff around um, disability. Um, the FA have got a new program, disability club training, and that disability club training is for grassroots clubs
Brilliant.
to open up their club to all people across the board and how to include and support and communicate with people with disabilities. So that's good as well. And then you got the disability football ambassadors, which support that program. So
Yeah,
when the clubs go on the training, these disability football ambassadors there's they're around the country and they actually work with the clubs then after they come out of the training, which is brilliant. And then the disability coach mentors, I think there's about 30 of us at the minute. Our job's to work more on the pitch, um, to support clubs to include people with disabilities, but also um, support the clubs to no
themselves.
to yeah to integrate coaches into their pathway as well.
Brilliant. So it's definitely evident that more's now being done to kind of not only get more
Yeah.
people in the disability sector involved, but also raise more awareness of it. In terms of, promoting disability sports, I don't know if this is exactly what you sort of focus on, but as in around the disability sector, how would you try and promote this even more to kind of get it up to the level of it's normal? It doesn't need to be looked at a different way. Obviously, coaching styles and training sessions need to be adapted, but we shouldn't all look at this as a different sport. It's the same sport, just with a few minor adjustments.
Yeah, I think and the thing where you can see that going the right direction is with the FA strategy now. There's actually before it was a game plan because they weren't at the stage where there was as no, it was coming out of COVID and it was trying to get things back up and run the game. But I think now with it's been there's one just released there a couple of weeks ago. It's actually a disability football strategy. So it's a strategy for to, and it sits across the whole FA strategy. Before it was like a bit of a no a hidden secret, and
Yeah,
there was good people doing work on it. But now it sits across all the strands of the FA strategy. So ethnic coaching, the female game, um, the England teams. Now the England teams sit under the same strategy. It's
yeah,
the disability teams, the para teams are sitting under that strategy as well. So I think that'll help things because it's more, no, it's not seen as as you say, an add-on or something that's extra. It's across it's just working across
yeah.
players
Just the
of
same
all
now.
abilities across the whole. Yeah, so that's good. Um, but yeah, I think probably the more case studies and good news stories and media can play a good part in that. I think one thing at the minute they've got the BT cover the Disability Cup every year at St George's Park, which is just great promotion for the disability game, and it gives that deserved um, promotion of the game as well.
Yeah, of
Yeah,
course. And
so stuff like
then
that's helping.
yeah, and as you said, you mentioned there the COVID-19 obviously era. How did the disability sports sector, was it affected? As in, obviously all
Yeah,
sport and physical exercise was affected, but was it, did it really take a big hit? Or since the pandemic, has it really then grown again? Like sort of, how was the industry
yeah.
affected by that era?
Yeah, it was affected big time. It was probably the last format of the game to really come back online. Like the female game and the male game and youth game came back very quick. But a lot of people shielding all the issues around um, health conditions and mixing again. So it was probably one of the last formats to come back, and it did take a massive hit. As the whole game, the whole football kind of halfway took a hit during that time, but it's kind of come back really now as the numbers are probably getting as good as they were before COVID. So
Yeah,
it did take a hit and it took a time to get back up and running, but I think it shows that people want to get back and numbers have kind of got back up to
yeah,
where they were before COVID,
yeah,
which
of
is great
course.
news. But yeah, it was a worrying time for a lot of people with disabilities. Um,
Of course,
but it's great that
like it was for the whole
that's
game,
it.
all the sporting industry.
Yeah.
Would you say post-pandemic, the disability sports sector, especially within football, is has raised more awareness than before the COVID-19 era, or would you say it's roughly on the same level?
Um, yeah, I think it has. I think it proves because a lot of people with disabilities, and it's not just people with disabilities, but football's such an important part of people's lives in that week. So to lose that, um, I think people realize how important football is, mentally and socially, and being part of an organization and a group that just improves people's well-being. I think then you realize how much of a hit it was when people couldn't go to their football club or couldn't socialize
Yeah,
or
of
have
course.
that kind of
And
enjoyment in the week.
yeah, and as you mentioned, it's not only, just turning up to play football, it's also the social side of football.
Yeah,
It's these people being involved in teams, being given the support, and mostly just, coming here and having fun rather than the
yeah,
competitive side of football that we saw obviously did get hit in the pandemic as well.
that's it. Yeah, yeah. And I think it's such a big part of people's lives in this country because it's such a big sport, and yeah, I think it did affect people when they didn't have that going playing with your mates or
Yeah.
meeting up to watch matches and yeah, as you said, the competitive game, not even being able to go out and watch games was tough for people as well. So yeah, I think definitely people realize how important it is. It's many times that you don't until you're hit with that kind of ban on the game, where people realize how important football is.
Yeah, of course. And then in terms of, again, representation, are there any common misconceptions that you see within the disability sector or, kind of comes from outside that is trying to get a change on in the future?
I think. but the language is always changing, and I think that's become. I don't know if you're probably aware of so there's a different models of this. So the social model of disability is people with disabilities taking back their what they believe is the right and is only right because they're the people who get faced with discrimination and issues in travel and sport and things we take for granted, really. So it's good that movement and that's changing now. There's other movements coming out. It's standing up and making your voice heard because for a long time people with disabilities didn't do that or didn't get a chance to do that. Sorry. So it's yeah, I think there is a lot of people who are outspoken now and speaking out about things that they're not happy with and things that needs to be
Yeah, of course, and
gone
this needs
set
to
improved.
be, yeah, more, represented in the sense of
That's
the
it.
FA side of it, because obviously discrimination does exist, and does impact sectors like the disability a lot. Do you think that hinders performance sometimes in the sense of outside noise of discrimination, or do you think that athletes nowadays in the disability sector cope with it quite well because of the inclusion practices put in place?
I think I think people have been through a lot in fairness, like but a lot of people I speak to they just want people to learn a bit more about disability and just remove a lot of it. A lot of it is attitude. No, it's attitude towards disability. It's changing that mindset that somebody's coming to your club, they just want to play football. It's up to you as a club how
Yeah,
you make that easy for them to do or hard or you don't even try. I think as long as I think people with disabilities that I've worked with, they don't mind if a club isn't there yet, but the worst thing that a club can do is go, no, we don't have the facilities or we don't have the coaches. If you at least try and have reasonable adjustments and try to include people, that's what people want.
yeah.
Um, whereas it's a lot of times clubs just shut down straight away when they hear somebody's got disabilities and they don't say they don't have the facilities or the people to work with in
Yeah, the
terms of coaching
resources
staff.
needed to cover this. So you think that
Yeah,
should be more kind of widely represented, especially in local areas where, you need quite a lot of the population to work with
yeah,
industries such as the disability sector to really try and get it going on a national basis.
yeah. Because there's a massive. We've some clubs like one of our disability clubs in London when I was at London FA had about 50, 60 people playing. There's a lot of people playing football,
Yeah,
maybe some that more than some mainstream clubs or youth clubs or female clubs. No, it's you're missing out on so many people who want to play the game by kind of closing your mind and kind of your attitudes towards this building and not wanting to learn about it. And we've seen clubs since they've opened up the disability pathway, their female games improved. No, there's more youth teams coming through. It just grows the club. Also probably helps the coaches because I was one of them coaches who didn't work in disability and then got into it, and then I think it's improved me as a coach in
yeah,
terms of maybe patience and also maybe how just maybe see blinkered approach now. I'm looking at individual players. How can you get the best out of them?
yeah, of course.
And that's the way coaching should be anyway.
Yeah, brilliant. And then I was going to say that in terms of like your own motivation, as you just said, you kind of came into the disability sector through being a coach.
Y-
What
Yeah.
kind of gives you almost the motivation to keep going within the disability sector and not branch out into either the women's game or men's football?
Yeah, I think well I had a cousin who had a learning disability. And I think I say this in the workshops I do as well. My kind of big thing is I seen her not getting a chance to play sports like I didn't, and I kind of often wondered why that was. Um, and then when you get older and you realize why, no, it wasn't her fault. It was the people within the clubs that may needed support, and then that was something that I thought was interesting when I was at college, when I was doing my sports coaching degree, was
Yeah,
to to do some voluntary work with Special Olympics Ireland. And yeah, since I've done them 4 years, I kind of
That was
knew
one
where
of
I
the
wanted to go in.
yeah.
Yeah, really enjoyed the work, and it's just so rewarding. But to work with some of these athletes, they're so inspiring as well. We complain a lot about stuff, but then you look at some of these athletes who have got a lot of stuff going against them, but when they go on the pitch, they just open up and you see the joy and the happiness. So yeah, I don't think I'll leave disability too soon. Kind of happy in the
Yeah,
sport at the
no,
minute.
brilliant. That's brilliant. And then that's what I was going to say. Is there any memorable stories or breakthrough moments that you've seen on the pitch that you can share with us in the sense of people doing well or any historic moments?
Yeah, I think I've had a lot of stories where we've done events and coaches and other teams have said, "Oh, that person can't do it. I don't think they can do that." Or no, we set up something and they're like, "I don't think our players." And we say, "We'll give them a chance first, let them try it before you kind of write them off." And yeah, that's really inspiring when you see that, and then they open up and go, "Wow, that's amazing! I didn't think they could." So it's kind of that thing of opening up. Probably a thing I go back to in my kind of early career was a young girl I used to work with in the session. She struggled with, it sounds very simple, but she struggled with putting her foot in the ball to stop the ball and trap the ball. And we worked with her over a couple of weeks. And she just stood with her hand against the fence and used that as balance. Next, she would use maybe another player where she'd just get support off them, get support off coach. And in that season, she went up and could do it on her own at the end of the season. And to somebody else, that doesn't seem like a massive thing or a massive event, but to us, it was kind of life changing that she, no, she needed a bit of support. We done that. We worked on it. Where somebody else, it's that thing of saying, well, if you can't do it, let's not bother. Like it's
Yeah,
kind of
so
trying to keep at it, working with the athlete. And that's the same with all coaching. Like it's kind of getting athletes to where they want to go and supporting them. And like sometimes we can be very quick to write people off, even when you look across the academy system and um, football in general, people can be written off. But I think as coaches, our job is to get the best out of them and try as much as we can with them and be that real support mechanism for them players. So yeah, just something it's something small, but I think it's something I always think about
yeah,
in
no,
my
that's
coaching
quite
career.
that's a great example because it shows what support does over a long period of time. And then obviously seeing that moment as a coach must obviously make you proud as a coach, but also the club as well. Seeing the
Yeah,
progression go from not being able to do a skill, a lot of people writing the person off, thinking they can't do it, don't give them a chance.
that's it.
You and other coaches around you giving the chance, giving them the support they need, and obviously seeing the end result.
Yeah, and as you said, I think you mentioned earlier as well, it's coming along the session, it wasn't all about football. But she was getting a lot of other stuff from like social and socializing and meeting friends and having a laugh. And yeah, so it's just yeah, there's so much. Football's obviously important too, but there's so much else that it brings to people's lives. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's important to keep that in mind as well.
Brilliant. And then in terms of the barriers, obviously we've had a little bit of discussion on discrimination and maybe coaches adapting their style or not understanding the language as we've spoken about before. But are there any additional barriers to participation that you think that disabled athletes do face, especially when growing up?
Yeah, yeah, I think so. Yeah, sometimes um it's getting better in schools. Like sometimes in schools, yeah, maybe they fall out of love with the sport because maybe they're not included within school settings. But there's lots of working on around that at the minute, so that helps. Um, I think the coaching, the attitudes, what I mentioned earlier, I think that's a big part of it.
Yeah.
Um, Also facilities and maybe enough sessions being in the area because we've a lot of people who travel. Because I'm based in London, a lot of people who maybe travel to South London
Yeah.
from Central London or West London because there's not enough in the area. So and no, it might be tough for parents who've got children, couple of children, and then have got to do that maybe locally and then go
Yeah.
off and do it somewhere else. So yeah, I think transport and kind of availability of sessions is a big one as well. That there should be more in areas, and I think we've got to keep pushing for more. it's going the right way. We probably need a lot more within
Yeah.
each of the local areas as well.
Right. And then finally, just really on advice and recommendation. So if you take an undergraduate like myself, for an example, or anybody that's trying to get into the disability sector, is there any advice that you would give them or any experience that you would look for on their CV?
I think what stood to me, coming from Ireland as well, coming over here, where I didn't really have any background of, say, local area, local authority, but I did have a good background on disability and working as a development officer. So I would say when you're studying, get out and get your volunteering, work with organizations, work on projects. Just don't go in there and just be a body, go in and get your hands dirty and actually don't get on projects, support projects, run events. That's where you'll get real knowledge of disability sport, like get stuck in. And that then 4 years when I was at college that I'd done Special Olympics Ireland kind of set me up for a good career, I think, because it put me in the right path. And then the work at QPR, always had a soft spot for QPR after spending
Yeah.
5.5 years there. It was a great club, learned a lot there as well. So yeah, I think that my advice would be get involved
Yeah, get
pretty early
involved
on.
and start gaining
Don't think,
experience.
yeah, don't leave it till like last year. Get like year one, get on it, get your voluntary hours up.
And then kind of just
More
following that, the
important.
last sort of thing is key skills and qualities of a coach. Obviously, we talked about having great communication and being very adaptable to the game. Is there any sort of other skills that you'd look for? Those are the main two that really make the perfect coach.
Yeah, I think it's been a really kind of personal person as well. Somebody who's nice person like somebody welcoming person and somebody who's really full of passion because I think a lot of people with disabilities they probably face the other side of it where they face people who where it's totally negative or you can't do this or you can't so having that can do attitude, that positive attitude and then empathy as well. Not petty towards the disability. You still push people with disabilities as hard as you push anyone else, but it's that empathy. No, all right, you have an impairment, but let's see how can we get the best out of you and push you as far as you can in the sport. So is that that positive and that kind of understanding of disabilities is probably important.
Brilliant. That's it. I really appreciate you taking time out of your day, as I said before, and understanding a little bit more about the disability section and explaining what you do. So thank you very much. Take care, and I hope to stay in touch in the future.
No problem. Thanks, Max. Thanks for.
No
Do
worries.
you
Thank you
need me
very
to?
much.